Hello, I'm Pastor Tim Malik with Calvary Lutheran Church. I'd like to introduce to you a new preaching series that we're doing. We actually have three that are connected, one for each of the 3 months of September, October, and November. The one in September is entitled Jesus Calls. And we'll be hearing Bible passages about Jesus calls the first disciples, Jesus and the Samaritan woman, Jesus and Peter walk on the water, and the resurrection and Great Commission. That is for September. But what we wanted to do with these videos during the next couple of weeks is to have 5 of the staff share their stories about being called by God. And also you'll be hearing from some of our members of the congregation about how God has called them in their life and their daily ministry, whatever it is that they've done with their lives. So I'll begin about my own call story. And even though I'm a pastor, and I will tell you about that a little bit as well, but I want to make it clear that through our baptisms, we've all been called into the priesthood of all believers, as Martin Luther called it, that you and I, no matter whether we're pastor or lay person, we all have a calling. And I think it's helpful to think about the ways that God has called us. And for me, it started pretty young in life, actually. My family were regular churchgoers. My parents seemed to have a renewal experience about the time of my middle school, junior high, high school years. And that's also when I became very involved. Bible camp had a big impact on me. It seems like at Bible camp, I really began to understand more deeply about God's unconditional love for me and for all people. And my faith became something that was exciting to me. It became easier to share that faith. And so those years, 7th, 8th grade through high school, sharing faith became a calling, if you will, of sorts. And it was a confirmation pastor, Pastor Gene Hermeyer, on our confirmation retreat at Riverside Bible Camp, on a one-on-one interview with me near the end of our time, said that I should really consider going into the ministry as an ordained pastor. And I didn't know what to do with that information. I was touched, I guess. I thought to be a pastor, I'd have to be like Pastor Hermeyer, who was a great preacher, and I think probably a pretty good pastor. But I just didn't think I could be like him, and I really didn't see myself as a pastor yet. And that leads me to something that I wanted to talk about. In the church, we often talk about, especially with candidates for ministry, we talk about an inner call and an outer call. The inner call is when you feel God nudging you, calling you to do something. You discern that for yourself. The outer call, and it's important in our denomination, in our tradition, that for candidates for ministry, that outer call is also there. The outer call is when other people say, this person has gifts for ministry, or they talk to somebody like Pastor Hermeyer talked to me. Well, the story of my life is that the outer call actually was always stronger than the inner call. So it took quite a while. My wife and I became active in our church in Texas, near Fort Worth, another Calvary Lutheran actually. And it was the pastors there and our friends, the opportunities I was afforded to serve on church council, to be in Stephen's ministry, that the inner call started to catch up. My 2 pastors and a lot of my friends were urging me to go into ministry. And I had a great career in electrical sales. I really loved that career. But I started to feel the call on the inside as well about entering ordained ministry. And the discernment for me was, God, do you want me to stay in what I'm doing? I was able to maybe contribute a little bit more money at that time than I would be after going to seminary, but what was God calling me to do? And finally the discernment came around about preaching, and that God would equip me, and I did feel called to be a preacher and teacher, as well as somebody that can provide pastoral care and all the things finally that we do in ordained ministry. And I was really open to the idea that God would clearly affirm that calling for me through the process of seminary, internship, and eventually a call to my first church. But I have been inspired by countless examples of the lay people I've worked with who have been active in their faith. And by that I mean not just a sense of devotion or a sense of commitment, but an active faith that bears fruit. People that because of their faith have made tough decisions, either in their business life or personal life, tough decisions to remain faithful, tough decisions to show God's love to other people when maybe the world would not do that. People who've rolled up their sleeves to get to work to make the world a better place. And I've been inspired by a lot of your stories. So I look forward to this month of September as we more carefully look at how Jesus calls each of us into a life of ministry, a life of loving others and serving others, because we have been blessed by God to be a blessing to others. Thank you for listening.